Welcome to Democracy Now!, democracynow.org, The War and Peace Report. I'm Amy Goodman. Confirmation hearings for Supreme Court nominee Elena Kagan continue today on Capitol Hill. If confirmed, she'll become just the fourth female Supreme Court justice. In her opening statement on Monday, Kagan, the nation's Solicitor General, vowed to listen to every case impartially.
I will make no pledges this week other than this one, that if confirmed, I will remember and abide by all these lessons. I will listen hard to every party before the court and to each of my colleagues. I will work hard, and I will do my best to consider every case impartially, modestly, with commitment to principle, and in accordance with law.
Republican lawmakers repeatedly claimed Elena Kagan would become a so-called activist judge, citing her ties to Thurgood Marshall, the first African-American Supreme Court justice. Kagan clerked for Marshall during the 1987-88 term. Marshall's name was mentioned 35 times during the opening day of Kagan's confirmation hearing. Senator Sessions is the ranking Republican on the Senate Judiciary Committee.
Importantly, throughout her career, Ms. Kagan has associated herself with well-known activist judges who have used their power to redefine the meaning of words of our Constitution and laws in ways that, not surprisingly, have the result of advancing that judge's preferred social policies and agendas. She clerked for Judge Mikva and Justice Marshall, each well-known activist, and she has called Israeli Judge Aaron Barak, who has been described as the most activist judge in the world, as her hero.
The confirmation hearings are being chaired by Democratic Senator Patrick Leahy of Vermont. During his opening statement, Leahy accused the current court of judicial activism, citing the controversial Citizens United ruling that allows corporations to spend unlimited amounts of money on election campaigns. Leahy praised Kagan's record.
I believe that fair-minded people will find her judicial philosophy well within the legal mainstream. I welcome questions to Solicitor General Kagan about judicial independence, but I'd urge senators on both sides to be fair. There is no basis to question her integrity. No one should presume that this intelligent woman has excelled during every part of her varied and distinguished career lacks independence.
In other Supreme Court news, gun control advocates were dealt a setback Monday when the court effectively struck down the city of Chicago's 28-year ban on handguns. In a 5-4 decision, the court returned the Chicago case to the lower courts, but made it clear such gun bans violate the Constitution and infringe on a citizen's right to keep and bear arms. The ruling will likely spur new challenges to gun control measures across the country. After the ruling, stock prices of the gun manufacturer Smith & Wesson jumped over 5.6%. In another 5-4 ruling, the Supreme Court ruled a public law school did not violate the First Amendment by withdrawing recognition from a Christian student group that excluded gay students. In news from Canada, more than 1,000 people rallied outside police headquarters in Toronto Monday to protest the police department's brutal crackdown during the G20 summit. It's now estimated that 900 people, including many journalists, were arrested over the weekend. Video has been posted on the web showing Toronto police dressed in riot gear beating peaceful protesters as they sang the Canadian national anthem. The FBI has arrested 10 alleged Russian spies in New York, New Jersey, Virginia, and Boston, and an 11th member of the alleged ring was arrested in Cyprus. Prosecutors have claimed Russian authorities had directed the men and women to gather information on nuclear weapons, U.S. policy toward Iran, CIA leadership, congressional politics, and other topics. The alleged spies have been charged with acting as an agent of a foreign government, but they're not facing espionage charges. 9 of them had also been charged with conspiracy to commit money laundering. The arrest came only 3 days after President Obama met with Russian President Medvedev at the White House. One of the alleged spies was identified as Vicky Pelez, a columnist for the New York-based Spanish-language newspaper El Diario. The Washington Post reports a force of about 700 U.S. and Afghan troops have launched a major assault along Afghanistan's border with Pakistan. The assault's described as one of the largest in eastern Afghanistan in the past several days. Officials said as many as 150 insurgent fighters were killed by the U.S. and Afghan troops. It's now known how many civilians died in the attack. Meanwhile, in Pakistan, at least 10 suspected militants died earlier today in a U.S. drone attack. The attack targeted a home near Wana, a main town in South Waziristan. New questions have arisen over the quality of training received by the Afghan army and police force. A report by the Special Inspector General for Afghanistan Reconstruction has found that even top-rated Afghan units still cannot operate independently. The U.S. has spent $27 billion on training Afghan forces since 2002. According to the New York Times, the report details drug abuse, heavy attrition, corruption, and illiteracy among the Afghan security forces. In other news on Afghanistan, Democratic Congresswoman Leahy is threatening to cut $4 billion in foreign aid for Afghanistan over concerns of government corruption. In news from the Gulf of Mexico, authorities are closely monitoring Tropical Storm Alex, which is threatening to become the first storm of the hurricane season. The storm could delay efforts by BP to increase the amount of oil it's capturing from the massive oil leak that's spewing oil into the Gulf of Mexico. Meanwhile, former President Bill Clinton has suggested it may become necessary to blow up the Deepwater Horizon well. Clinton made the comment during a panel discussion in South Africa.
Unless we send the Navy down deep to blow up the well and cover the leak with piles and piles and piles of rock and debris, which may become necessary. You don't have to use a nuclear weapon, by the way. I've seen all that stuff. Just blow it up. Unless we're going to do that, we are dependent on the technical expertise of these people from BP.
In Mexico, a popular gubernatorial candidate in the northern state of Tamaulipas was murdered Monday, less than a week before he was expected to win the July 4th election. Rodolfo Torre and 4 aides were killed when gunmen ambushed their campaign caravan. The killing of Torre has been described as the highest-level political assassination in Mexico in over 15 years. President Felipe Calderón condemned the shooting.
These events present an attack, not only against one citizen, a citizen who aspired to serve his community from a public responsibility, but they are attacks against the whole society. It's an event not only against one candidate from a political party, but also against democratic institutions.
Former Honduran President Manuel Zelaya has directly accused the United States of being behind the 2009 coup that ousted him a year ago. In a letter released on Monday, Zelaya wrote, quote, "What we suspected at the beginning has now been confirmed. The United States was behind the coup." He went on to write, quote, "The Honduran people are faithful witnesses to the role that the economic interests of the United States played in this tragic event." The United States is the largest source of foreign investment in Honduras and accounts for much of its trade. Zelaya is currently living in exile in the Dominican Republic. In Honduras, thousands of people marked the anniversary of the coup by marching into Tegucigalpa and calling for the return of Zelaya.
We are seeing the resistance growing every day. The Honduran people have awoken, and we have faith this struggle will not last days or a year. We know the people every day, when they see the needs, the economic, political, and social crisis in the country, the insecurity and all that, the people have to unite more to the resistance to look for solutions to these problems.
And in technology news, the Obama administration's outlined a plan to nearly double the amount of commercial broadband spectrum currently available for wireless devices, including smartphones. Some estimates suggest the next 5 years will see an increase in wireless data of between 20 to 45 times over 2009 levels. Lawrence Summers, the director of the National Economic Council, outlined the plan on Monday.
Opening up spectrum will, and I'll detail this a little later, create the foundation for a new private sector investment in economic activity in mobile broadband and a range of other high-value uses that would not have been possible without the coordinating and organizing role of government.
And those are some of the headlines.